Hey Art Nerds! Today we are putting the Arteza TwiMarkers to the Natto Soup Studio Fieldtest, and we're going to create this really cute Miku and Fairy Kei inspired girl. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through how to use these markers, and we're also going to talk about how well these markers perform. So I'm using the Arteza 48-piece TwiMarker set. I purchased this set out of Pocket. Inside the Arteza watercolor sketchbook, both of these were purchased by me, and my sketch was completed using a Pilot Color Eno mechanical pencil with their soft pink lead. And one of the reasons I like this lead is because it allows for lineless marker work like what we're doing today. So the Arteza 48 color set has loads of really fun, saturated, bright, poppy colors. You guys can check out the unboxing swatch by clicking the card here. As you can see, we have our swatches over here. I'm going to have this just off camera. That's going to allow me to effectively select the colors that I want to use for this review. So I'm going to start selecting some of my colors, and I want a green blue to pink ombre for her hair. So I'm going to select for that, and this is going to really let us see how well these colors blend. And I've also decided I'm going to pick the clothing colors after I've colored her hair and her skin. We'll kind of go from there. I want to remind you guys that this review was only made possible thanks to the wonderful generosity of my art nerds on Patreon. They are the only sponsors that I have outside of my fantastic fiance, Joseph Coco. So I want to extend a huge thanks to them. If you like what I do and you want to help me do it, you can join me at patreon.com/nattosoup. So to begin, I decided to apply sort of a halo of color around her. So I'm using this really light blue color, and I'm doing a direct application to the paper, and then I'm going to blend it out using water. And I found that even when I'm trying to blend it out using water, it mostly stayed where it was, except for bleeding into the character, which is not good. I'm also applying dots of colors that I kind of selected that are going to go into her hair into the background. This way we're going to kind of tie everything together. And what I want to do is spritz it down with water and get all the colors moving and activated, sort of like in my Arrtx watercolor marker field test. And I will link that in the cards right here in case you guys want to check that out. On that note, I have loads of great art supply reviews here on this channel, and I also do field tests where I walk you through using the products just like I'm doing right now. So you guys can see some colors moved more than others, but the halo around her didn't quite move as much as I would like. Now I applied that same blue to my white Teflon craft mat, and I'm applied it to the tops and bottoms of her eyes, and now I'm flicking in some of the color that I applied to the background. So I'm applying it to my craft mat first, picking up with clean water, and then flicking it into the background just to kind of create some liveliness and movement. So once our background had a chance to fully dry, I am applying Peach A119 to the craft mat. Then I added water and I applied it to the skin. These colors are really saturated and a bit too bright, so this sort of indirect application is a great way to build up color. I allowed this layer to dry. I'm also applying a little bit of water to the areas that seeped into her and using a clean paper towel to try and lift some of that up. And you saw a little bit of sneak peek of what we're doing next. So I'm applying the A119 directly to her skin now since it's had a chance to dry. And then I'm going to add coral, which is A125. And I noticed that I'm starting to see some paper abrasion already. Now I'm working in the Arteza watercolor sketchbook, and this is supposed to be Arteza's watercolor markers. The TwiMarkers are supposed to be watercolor markers. The fact that they were abrading the paper already is really bad news. That is not something that you're going to want to see. Now, mostly I use this Arteza sketchbook as a place to swatch my watercolors when I'm doing other watercolor paintings. So I'm fairly familiar with how this paper handles, and that sort of abrasion is not a good sign. Now, this is a cellulose-based watercolor paper. It is absolutely not my favorite. It is not one that I would recommend over Canson XL or Canson Montval's sketchbooks. So if you're looking for a good watercolor sketchbook, skip this one and get one of the two I just recommended. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, everything in this video was purchased out of pocket. So all opinions are my own and based on my experiences using these products. So once that had a chance to dry, I added, let me see if I can find it, Chartreuse green, A133, and Spearmint blue, A115 to her eyes. Now for her hair, the colors that I'm using are Spearmint blue, A115, Bright blue, A108, Arctic blue, A552, Cerulean blue, A615, Egyptian blue, A128, Orchid purple, A253, wild pink, A124, and blush pink to her hair. And the first thing I'm doing is just a dry layering applied directly to the paper and trying to layer the colors a bit back and forth using the marker brush tips themselves. Now these are fiber brush tips. They're not foam rubber brush tips like I had hoped. The other end on these TwiMarkers is a very small plastic nib. The build construction on these are really pretty poor. If you're interested in learning more about how these markers are constructed and how they compare to other water-based markers, I'd love it if you guys checked out my initial unbox and swatch review. So I'm trying to blend the colors, color into color, working really quickly, trying not to let the ink dry, but I'm doing a dry application on the paper rather than applying it to my craft mat and then applying it to the paper itself. And I'm using a brush with clean water to try and blend the colors. But there was a lot of paper abrasion when I tried to blend the color into color, and it wasn't giving me a clean ombre like I wanted, so I used the water. And adding the water was a huge mistake because either the brush nibs abraded the paper surface, and this caused uncontrollable bleeding, as you guys can kind of see going into her arm right now. Which, awesome, not what I wanted. So I tried to use significantly less water in the other twin tail, and it didn't blend all the way out, and I didn't blend all the way out to the edge. So I used less water, I didn't blend all the way to our edges, and that was better. It still didn't give me the effect I really wanted, but it handled a bit better. Then when those dried, I went in and colored in the back of her hair using the same colors. And by this point, I already knew that I hated these as watercolor markers, and I want to know, what the heck, Arteza? What are these even about? I tagged them in a tweet where I shared this piece of art, and I pointed out that I didn't like what they did to the paper surface, and all they really had to say was, such beautiful colors, which is just kind of a compliment to themselves. So for her bangs, I'm using our brightest color, our brightest blues. So bright blue, Arctic blue, and maybe a little bit of cerulean blue. And as you guys can see, I'm leaving the shinies of her hair as uncolored. And I was so miserable with how her twin tails handled and bled that I didn't use water to blend those out. And I'm using the same coral on her tongue. And it's just a direct application. So I allowed her hair to dry fully, and then I applied a second layer and tried to clean things up a bit with her hair. Even after everything had a chance to dry, like I went out to go get dinner for an hour and came back, these are still tearing up the paper. And I want to know, is it the Arteza paper or the Arteza markers? And considering I've used this paper before, I'm gonna say it's the markers. Now, there are a lot of really good dye-based watercolor markers on the market that will allow you to make gorgeous art that you're happy with. I'm going to link some of those markers in the cards and in the description below if you want to learn how to use water-based markers to make art that you're going to enjoy. But if you are buying water-based markers for yourself because you want to avoid alcohol marker fumes, I'm going to go ahead and recommend that you guys check out the Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. You're going to have none of the paper abrasion problems that you're going to have with these TwiMarkers. But basically any nylon bristled, whereas individual bristles, any nylon bristled watercolor brush pens are going to handle better than these. And like I said, I have a lot of other videos on this channel where I use those types of markers, so I'll link those throughout. So I'm just kind of going over her hair again, adding more color, trying to blend it out using the markers while dry. And this is probably where I spent the majority of my time with this piece, was just trying to get her hair to work because I had this really cool idea for her hair in my mind, and I was having a really difficult time capturing it with these markers. So that's another thing I want you guys to keep in mind, is if you're struggling to use the product and you're an experienced artist, that's not a good sign. So for her hair, or for her shirt, I'm using Sapphire Lemon. I'm going to blend that out with a little bit of water so that we get a softer color because she's Fairy Kei inspired. So very bright colors, pastels, kind of a candy theme. And then when that has a chance to dry, I'm going to do another layer of Sapphire Lemon, or Sapphire Yellow, which is A162, and then do a layer of Lemon Yellow, which is A112. So for her hair bows, I did Chartreuse Green, which is A133. And I'm kind of going based on her eye color. I wanted to mirror that in her bows. And I also selected colors that would contrast nicely with the colors in her hair. Hence the yellow in her top and her very bright green hair bows. For her skirt, I'm using Lavender A121 and Egyptian Blue A128. And if you guys missed something in the audio of this video, I'm going to put an abbreviated transcript down in the description below. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm applying the A121 lavender to her skirt, and I'd hoped that I could blend this out with water. You guys see I'm leaving a lot of white and I'm just coloring the shadows. I was hoping the water would blend that color all the way out, but it really didn't move. It refused to blend out. So I applied it directly to my craft sheet and then tried to blend it that way, and it still wasn't much better. So now I'm applying another layer of our Sapphire Yellow A162 to her shirt, and then going into that with Lemon Yellow A112. And I'm also drawing in stars in the background using some of the colors that we've used previously, as well as colors that kind of suit the piece. So I'm going in right now with neon oranges and drawing little star shapes. And I'm just doing it the way we were all kind of taught in grade school, and then filling those in. And I'm going to do this with several different colors that either came directly from the piece or complement the piece. And that way we have this really bright, fun, colorful image. So once her skirt dried, I went in with my second layer of Egyptian Blue, A128, and I'm just kind of reinforcing those shadows, tightening things up a little bit. And as I'm working, I'm really realizing how much these markers are tearing up my paper surface, which I need to do something in terms of line art because we have a lot of bleeding, we have a lot of uncontrolled color migration, but I don't want to ink using the plastic nibs on these markers. So later in the video, I'll show you guys what I do choose to ink with. Okay, so I'm doing a sub-test now. This is a much smoother sort of sketchbook paper. This was one of those tiny little Denick sketchbooks that were sent in an Art Snacks years and years ago. And I was thinking maybe a smoother paper like a bullet journal paper or an Hobonichi journal paper would be better for these markers because there's less surface for them to catch on. And spoiler alert, they tear up these thinner coated papers as well. I haven't yet found a paper that these particular markers like. Now, as I said in my unbox and swatch video, if you guys like these markers, if you guys use these markers to make art and you're not having paper abrasion issues where it tears up your paper and you get uncontrolled bleeding, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know what papers you're working with. So back to our original piece, I am using the Tombow Fude no Suke colored brush pens, and I've selected several because I'm going to do multicolor line art for her hair. I do apologize that my head has gotten into the shot. My eyesight's pretty terrible, so I need to get all uptight and personal with my art these days. So I am using colors that kind of complement what I'm doing to ink each part. So for example, I'm utilizing the blue to ink her eyelashes and her eyebrows. I'm going to use the pink to ink her face. I'm using purple and blue to ink her hair. And I'm just kind of working with colors that complement what I've already done. Now, these are not necessarily part of this review. I really like them. I use them pretty frequently. I love their bright colors. So, I'm just kind of using these to kind of come in and save the day, a la Mighty Mouse. Really, I should have been able to use the plastic nibs on the back of these, but the paper was so torn up that I had to go with a brush nib. And I have loads of really cool inking tutorials here on this channel if you're interested in learning more about inking with dip pens, nibs, brushes, and brush pens. I got you covered here. For these, I really like them. I don't necessarily feel the need to do a standalone review of these, but if you guys are interested in seeing a standalone review with maybe a field test where I show you guys how to do colored line art that complements your art, let me know down in the comments below. I'm always interested in hearing what you guys want to see more of. So I'm also going in and using white gouache to kind of clean some things up, add some highlights. I want to point out that when I'm doing field tests, my goal is to make attractive art. And sometimes I feel like this misleads people when I post the art on Instagram because I don't say, oh, I hated this product, or oh, I really struggled with this product when I'm sharing it on Instagram, because I don't want to seem overly negative. My YouTube and my blog are where I do reviews. My Instagram is where I share art. So even though I really like how this piece turned out, I think she turned out super cute. And now I'm just flicking white gouache to help kind of break things up. Even though I think she turned out super cute, I absolutely do not recommend these Arteza TwiMarkers. These were a product that I purchased out of my own pocket off of the Arteza site. I paid about $30 for them and I really don't like them. So I recommend you give them a skip. Don't buy these markers. Buy the Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers that have the individual nylon bristles. None of these have been sponsored by anyone but my patrons, so this is coming from my heart. I really like to be honest with you guys. I like to share my experiences with you guys because I want to help you guys make the best art you guys can make. I know fighting with bad art supplies can turn people off from art. I know it can make people depressed about the art that they make. That's not what I want to do. That's not my intention with this channel. I want to uplift you guys and inspire you guys. So my reviews are always going to be as honest as I can make them. So if you have any questions down in the comments below, let me know. I'm always happy to hear from you guys. And I hope that this Fieldtest / tutorial was helpful, useful, and informative. There are definitely ways that you can make art supplies that fight you work for you. It takes longer. It can be done. But I think for the price and what they do, these markers are overpriced and not worth your time. I recommend you guys, if you want to buy water-based markers, you either get the Crayola Super Tips, and I have videos on how to use those on this channel, and I'm going to have more videos on how to use those coming up. For those of you who are looking for even more Crayola inspiration, I also really recommend you check out the Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers, or the Pentel brush pens, or the Jane Davenport mermaid markers. Basically, not these. Ecoline markers, also awesome. I have reviews for all of those here on this channel. I will have linked them through the cards. They'll also be in the description. But I really don't like these. These are awful. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found this helpful, useful, and informative. I had fun doing this even though the supplies fought me, and I hope that this will encourage you guys. If you own these, it'll show you some ways to use them so that they don't just go to waste. So have a wonderful day, guys. Bye!